Courage, an Ender's Game novel. According to Bethany Hamilton, courage doesn't mean you don't get afraid. Courage means you don't let fear stop you. In the novel Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, a similar idea applies. There are many courageous characters in Ender's Game, but there is only one that shows the most courage and bravery out of all of them. This person wrote to Ender and became Demosthenes. She even went to one of the bugger worlds. In Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game, Valentine is the most courageous character. A courageous act that Valentine had done was writing a letter to her little brother Ender while he was at battle school. She was asked to write this letter by Graf because Ender was having problems with completing the Fairyland game. Why should I help you? Don't help me. Help Ender. What does it matter if that helps us too? At first, Valentine was unsure about whether or not she should write Ender a letter and help Graf because she could not trust him. She thought that they did not care about Ender and it was only for the benefit of Graf and the other members of the IF. After she had voiced her thoughts, Graf had convinced her that she was still helping Ender, but it was just that they would have benefited as well. I sold my brother, Valentine said, and they paid me for it. After writing Ender the letter, Valentine had realized that what she had done was not right. She felt as though she had betrayed Ender and had sold him to the IF by helping him. Although Valentine regretted the decision afterwards, she had still performed a courageous act by writing Ender that letter, even though she had many doubts about whether helping him that way was the right thing to do when the IF would most definitely benefit as well. By writing Ender that letter could have helped the IF in controlling Ender's life and hurting him more than helping, but she had still written the letter, which took quite a bit of bravery. Another act of courage that Valentine had performed was becoming Demosthenes. Peter, her older brother, had asked her to take on a pseudonym and help him gain political power through the webs. She couldn't explain what it was like to think of her little brother, who was so good, whom she had protected for so long, and then remember that now she was Peter's ally, Peter's helper, Peter's slave, in a scheme that was completely out of her control. Ender never surrendered to Peter, but I have turned. I've become part of him, as Ender never was. She had a choice of whether or not she had wanted to help Demosthenes and surrender to Peter, and she had chosen to do it. Peter had convinced her. Her becoming Demosthenes meant that in a way she was taking Peter's side. It took a lot of courage for Valentine to help Peter, because she and Ender had both hated him as children. Valentine could also have thought that she was betraying Ender by becoming Demosthenes, since Peter would always hurt Ender and threaten to kill him. Taking up the pseudonym, Demosthenes tested Valentine's bravery and her courage, but she had done that nonetheless. A third act of courage that Valentine had carried out was choosing to travel to one of the bugger worlds after the buggers had been destroyed. She had to give up many things to get a chance for a fresh start away from a world that was controlled by Peter. Demosthenes retired. Now I'm going with the first colony. Valentine had helped Peter in reaching his goal of becoming one of the most powerful people in the world, but afterwards she had given up being Demosthenes. If she had held on to the title, Valentine would have been tied down to Earth and still connected to Peter. In order to sever that connection, she gave up and left everything on Earth. Their worlds are empty now, and ours is full, and we can take with us what their worlds have never known, cities full of people who live private, individual lives, who love and hate each other for their own reasons. Ender, Earth belongs to Peter, and if you don't go with me now, he'll have you there, and use you up until you wish you'd never been born. Now is the only chance you'll get to get away. Valentine had gone to Eros in order to convince Ender to go with her and start a new life at one of the bugger worlds. She believed that Earth belonged to Peter, and to be able to truly start over without being tied down and used, she would have to start anew at a bugger world. This took quite a bit of courage, because Valentine left her parents, other family members, friends, and even possessions. Parting with things that she had some sort of emotional attachment on was something difficult, and it shows bravery. Not every character in Ender's Game could have been able to do such a thing. Leaving almost all of the things she was familiar with, Valentine traveled to another world to start a new life, and that is most definitely courage. It can be argued by many that Valentine is not the most courageous character in Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game. It can be said that instead of Valentine, Ender is actually the most courageous character. One of the reasons could have been that because he chose to leave his family and join battle school, although he was only 6 years old. He had also stood up to bullies and a couple of injustices while in and even before battle school. Although this may be true, Valentine is still the most courageous character. Ender never really changed as a character, while Valentine did. Valentine had also performed many more courageous actions than Ender had. Valentine's whole life changed because of her actions, and they greatly affected her, and a lot of the time they affected the ones around her as well. Ender had his moments of bravery, but overall, he remained unchanging and lackluster. He did not like battle school, but he did not do much about that. He did not try to oppose any of the IF officers when he knew something was wrong. He barely even talked to anyone about his true inner feelings about battle school and his allies. On the other hand, Valentine had made life-changing decisions, and she acted courageous when she needed to, even if she had her doubts. Valentine Wigan is without doubt the most courageous character in Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game.